Welcome to The Real Life Buyer. Whether you are buying for yourself or your business, here you will find tips, techniques and knowledge to support your journey to buying smart. Interviewing business owners and technical experts to give you information and guidance before parting with your money. Save money, time and get what you want when you want it. Now introducing The Real Life Buyer, Dave Barr.
Hello and welcome to The Real Life Buyer. In this episode, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Jenny Knighting, founder and owner of the Nutcracker Agency, a marketing business, and much more. Jenny, now supported by a team of 15, started her business in April 2014 and is based in Sutton, England. So let's dive in and explore deeper into business growth through such things as content creation and social media leverage. Hello, Jenny. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolute pleasure. I'm very pleased to spend some time with you. It was only a few months ago we made contact, and I see your business appears to be doing rather well. Would you like to give the listeners an overview of your company and the services you offer?
Yeah, of course. So Nutcracker is a sales and marketing agency. At the heart of it is commercial growth. So when I founded the business nearly 7 years ago, I had three kind of core goals in mind. The first was to help businesses grow. So I'm very passionate about business growth and people that are passionate about their businesses. And the second is to align sales and marketing. So often you have a disconnect between sales and marketing, and that can often be where marketing becomes ineffective because your salespeople are often at the front of a business, really hearing the pain points that customers or potential customers are facing, and not feeding that back to the marketing department, which means that the marketing campaigns can often feel a bit stilted or not quite on point to people's pain points. So if you can really connect those two so that your leads pass through smoothly to the salespeople feed it back, you can unlock some exciting growth. And the third was to create a business where people who work there felt really excited to work there and felt they could thrive and grow. So within that remit, Nutcracker offers kind of full service. We look at content, storytelling, social media, digital marketing, PR. I mean, it's a 360 kind of holistic agency, which can offer any aspect of sales and marketing, from picking up the phone through to creating lead generation campaigns. So it's a real mixture.
Okay. So how has the business developed from the day you started it with your vision at that time to where you are now? Has it fundamentally changed or just grown in the way you planned it would do?
I think for me, because when I founded the business, it was really important to have a really boutique feel where people really cared. One of the reasons why I founded the business was I became very disenchanted with how agencies performed and how they treated their clients. And I wanted to create an agency which could be at the heart of people's business, almost an extension of their own teams. And to do that, it's very hard to do that on a massive explosive growth scale because you can't get the right talent in that thinks the same. You can't get that kind of real attention to detail on campaigns. So in terms of how it's changed, I'd say it's got better. I mean, we did some astonishing work in the early days, but I'd say that the process and the streamlined approach to joined up campaigns. I'm so sorry. That is my cat.
That's fine.
I'm so sorry, whoever's listening. I hope you like cats. If not, apologies. So I think it hasn't changed dramatically in its viewpoint in terms of unlocking growth and producing some really good commercial results, but it's changed in the sense that it now offers more services. Because when I started the business, I wanted to join up social media with content and with wider outreach, because back then it was done in silos. So you had different agencies responsible, different people responsible for those types of marketing. And I couldn't understand that, because I thought, well, if you've got a really great piece of content, but it's executed separately to people running social media, how can you have the right messaging? So I didn't really understand how you could keep that separate. But since then, what's needed is evolved even more. It's very difficult to have, a really successful campaign which isn't linked into a landing page, isn't linked into paid search, isn't linked into some form of digital PR. So I just think marketing now probably through the fact that you can measure everything for an inch of his life, it's probably the most exciting it's ever been, because it offers so many different ways to reach people's target audience, but also you can bring it to life in a really visually exciting way. So I think the business at its heart, with those 3 founding principles that I wrote in my initial business plan, it still governs Nutcracker. Like we've got some really exciting clients, and they're very mixed. Some of them are quite small, some of them are large. Some of them are owned, and some of them are part of teams which have got shareholders. But at the heart of it, they're all very, very passionate about their businesses and their products and how they want to grow. And that's what I get excited about, my team gets excited by. Because nothing more uninspiring than pouring your heart and soul into this type of work, and you got someone who doesn't really care, so you're sending it all over, and kind of, it's not motivating. So in answer to your question, Nutcracker hasn't changed its ethos, but it's just got better and better all the time.
Right. Do you seek certain types of clients? Do you have an avatar that you search for? Do you go for certain markets or certain industries, or are you really open from anybody who wishes to engage your services?
I mean, we're quite a chameleon, because I think you can learn an awful lot from different sectors and then applying those in other areas. And I like the variety of understanding different industries' pain points. Having said that, I personally will always have a love of manufacturing. I love, products. I love all different types of products. But so we do have, a fair share of manufacturing clients, just because I love the industry. Having said that, we've also got some really interesting clients in the data space, technology clients, finance clients. It's a real mixed bag. We've even got, clients within the vape industry. It's a real mixture. In fact, one of our exciting new clients, they are building a really interesting community for mental health, which is based around a mental health drink, which is a very interesting story. And the founder, I really resonate with his journey. So yes, I mean, it's a real mixture, but at the heart of all of it, you've got people who have either got a passionate idea, passionate about what they want to do, or they want to transform what they're doing. They know what they're doing isn't working, and they're desperate to kind of transform into something that does. And I think all of them, without exception, have that ambition in common, even if they're from different sectors, different sizes. We've got global clients. So for some of our clients, we're running campaigns in Hong Kong and Singapore, whereas in others, we've got a really small startup. We're at the start of their journey. And I love that. I love the fact that it's so varied and mixed. It makes it really interesting.
That's interesting when you've got international clients. Do you see lots of cultural differences from those different types of clients?
Yeah, you do. You have to be quite aware of different things. And business language is quite different. And also how you portray certain products. But at the heart of good marketing is always understanding the pain point and being the right solution and presenting that in a really engaging, non-me way. So whether or not it's a slightly different way of presenting it, the heart of it is still the same. And for businesses that are global, for anyone listening, I'm sure it will resonate, that to have a true global presence, you need to have a unified brand, a unified message. So you do need to have like anchor messaging that pulls it all together.
Okay. So what would you say would be the key unique proposition that you offer, your company offers over perhaps other marketing agencies?
I think what makes Nutcracker different is that we really understand the commercial needs of marketing. So if someone is spending X, we understand that it needs to have an impact and generate Y. And I think that's a very different approach. And I think that comes because my background is sales. So even though I became a sales and marketing director a long time ago, for the first 50% of my career, it was very much around sales and building products, building things. And so I think really understanding that commercial side of the business gives Nutcracker an advantage, because we think really commercially. That's not to say that our marketing is just in your face sales, but it means we understand that we need to get results, we need to generate leads. And I think that really changes how we approach projects and how we do things. I also think Nutcracker becomes part of people's teams, and not many agencies do. They sit very much on the outside. It's very much us and them. Whereas for all of our clients, one of the things they value is that it's quite an intimate, obviously in a professional way, an intimate relationship, sense that we really understand their business. We can speak in the language. If it's social media, for example, if we're running someone's social media accounts, they never have to approve our posts because we can speak authentically. And I think that's really important. Often we'll take over businesses who've come from other agencies and they've left because they're having to rewrite the post, rewrite the copy, feed content ideas. They've just got a feeling they're not really understanding it. And that's because a lot of people sit on the surface. They don't want to delve under to really get what a business is about.
It's interesting. So how should a potential client prepare before they meet with you so they both ensure they get best value and understanding for both parties?
I think it depends what skill set they've got internally, because Nutcracker can help people that don't really understand what they've got to do. Because a lot of people, why marketing doesn't work sometimes is because people don't really understand it and they can get quite defensive because they don't understand it. So, and when you're defensive, you want to devalue something because you don't understand it. And sometimes I will talk to people, and one of my passions is helping people grow their businesses and helping people do a lot of work around self-esteem to people that have got that kind of lack of confidence that I myself don't suffer from. And sometimes I'll talk to people and they don't really know what they need. They just know they've got to do something or their dream isn't going to work out. And that's where I can really help give them insight and really look at what they're doing. Now, that's very time consuming for me, but it's really important before you start trying to sell something to somebody that you understand what they need, exactly what they need. So it depends what skill set someone's got. If someone understands, has a good grasp of sales and marketing, they will have a clearer idea of what they need, whether it's that they just know the copy's missing the mark, social media is not working, they desperately need some new leads, or they're trying to go into a new sector or new territory. That's different what they prepare, because they would know what they're looking for, have a good understanding. Whereas a lot of people don't. They just know that their sales cycle is too problematic. It's too whimsical in terms of dependent on external things, and they know that to really anchor their businesses they've got to change. So if they knew what they needed, they would do it themselves, but often they don't. They just know that their lead generation is not consistent enough to maintain a proper sales cycle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. So do you have any particular tools that help to document people's vision of what they want and then help to put some KPIs around those factors so they can be measured against how you perform against the target?
Well, I think the starting point isn't so much a tool, it's an understanding of what you need to achieve, and then understanding what your average deal size is, how many clients or deals you need to hit your targets, and then to look at how many leads you need to acquire, and then be reasonable about return on investment. Because good marketing done well will always make a business grow. Like, it always will. It just will. That's why it exists. And businesses that don't take marketing seriously either will eventually shrivel up, or they will just have very, 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 very slow growth, which will go backwards, step forwards, go backwards, because without a proper marketing plan, it's virtually impossible for businesses to grow properly. So with regard to tools, it's a lot of experience. Like, I have extensive experience at growing businesses, and at setting, not just from my own personal experience of having to grow businesses, but from working with over 50 businesses over the last 7 years and understanding their growth needs. Before that, I also worked with lots of entrepreneurs chairing roundtables around their growth pain points. So I'm very fortunate to have had an awful lot of insight into what tends to work and not work with businesses. So it's really taking the time to understand what stage their business is at and where they need it to be and why. Because we have companies come to us who really on the back foot, they're having a hard time, they're quite desperate, they need leads, and they don't really have the money to spend, because the whole reason they're there is because they need leads. And that's where it's about really looking at what I would do in their shoes, knowing all the ways we can outreach. And that's where it's matching up to the right budget. So for example, I might then recommend to someone with very, very small budgets that we run a LinkedIn lead generation campaign, which we do manually because we know it works and it's low cost. That might then bring enough leads in so they can invest more into longer term brand building, which is going to give them longer term security. If you've got someone who knows they need to make a splash and they need to build a brand, then I'd come up with something completely different. So it really depends what stage someone's at. And I'm very, very skeptical of marketeers who say one size fits all, because it just doesn't.
Yeah, tailored then basically to needs. Okay.
Yeah.
So what should a person, if they come to you and they explain what they're looking for, they try and articulate their vision, what do you give back to them as a proposal? How does that look like?
So it's personalised. So it's not just kind of a PowerPoint where you've got one slide slightly adapted and the rest of it is just cut and paste. So it's really a summary of kind of what we've discussed, kind of what their objections are, what their needs are, what their audience is, and then, to my mind, what they need to actually get results fit within a rough budget parameter. Because there's no good someone saying, send me a proposal, giving no indication of budget, and there's no way they can afford it. It's just demotivating for the person receiving it and a waste of time for me. It's much better that someone says, well, I've got this much that I think I can afford to spend. And then, it varies. We work with companies of all sizes. I've just written a proposal today where it's a really decent campaign budget for 5 months with you to going to a year contract. So it really does vary. Nutcracker isn't an off the peg agency. And as such, what we do isn't off the peg, off the shelf, off the peg.
That works for me. Just think about your clients then. How do they find their way to your door? Is it through your own marketing? Is it through referrals? Is it people just Googling on the net? It'd be interested to know what types of people, what types of company are getting to you.
So we always have good growth, but in February we were 60% up on 2020, which is unusual in this climate. So I've analysed where that growth has come from quite closely, so it's quite easy to answer your question. It's a real mixture. We always grow through referrals. We're very, very lucky in the sense that, there's not many clients we've had that haven't recommended us to someone, which gives us growth. We've also had a client last week confirm who actually came through Twitter, where my lovely senior account executive Jordan had followed them from Nutcracker. They got in touch and they came on board. We've had another couple through the paid search work we do, another from LinkedIn, another from email marketing. So what's interesting about how we get our leads in is it kind of is fairly even across our marketing plans. All of our marketing outreach we treat as with our clients, and it's quite interesting that all of it generates leads. I think the most successful will always be referrals, but referrals always increase when we're marketing ourselves a bit more proactively because we're in people's minds. So even if it's referral because of past work, you can often say yes, but it was given a very big helping hand because we were that much more visual, or we've just won an award, or they've seen me talk on something, or whatever it might be.
Okay. So we're thinking about accountability now. So you've reeled in your client and you're doing the work. How do you demonstrate, what sort of KPIs do you use to demonstrate your performance and how much of an impact that's having on their business or could have on their business?
Well, that goes back to what they want to achieve. So you would have agreed that before we got started. So then it's fairly easy to report back because you've got clear goals and what you're targeting on. But, people also have an instinctive feel of how things are going. If you started working or increasing your marketing and sales are picking up, it's quite obvious it's working. If inquiries, if volume has picked up, if people are starting to say they noticed you did something or they're talking about you, people often want just tangibles, but often it's about the wider thing. So, for example, I could be really difficult with my team, and I could say that some of the activity we do has no impact whatsoever, except for during the time we were particularly heavy on some marketing, we closed 4 clients that may have come in a completely different way to the marketing outreach we did. However, would they still have come in if we weren't doing the marketing? Probably not. So I think it's about people. Some people approach marketing, they're setting up to fail. They almost want to go, I told you it wouldn't work, and that skeptical narrative breeds negativity and it breeds failure. If you go into something knowing that marketing can work and knowing it can transform your business and you want it to work and you're open and you're proactive, that's when you get best results. And that's when you can go back and report back on KPIs because you're all pulling in the same direction. And that's the alignment of sales and marketing, or marketing and leadership team, is there needs to be respect for what marketing does and a belief that it will work to start with. Otherwise, you're pushing treacle uphill and it's very painful and it's demotivating for everybody involved, actually.
Okay. So you're doing lots of tailor-made packages for both small and large clients. How do you go about costing and budgeting for those sort of things when they're quite unknown in some ways?
Well, they're not really unknown because we've got a lot of experience at it. So we can reasonably estimate how long something will take and then charge accordingly.
Right, so it's
So
on an hours to hours basis, or
it depends. I mean, often what we do is more complicated. It might be on half a day or a day, or it could be an hour. It depends. But we've got a lot of experience at what we do. We know how long things will take, and we can reasonably estimate. More often than not, though, Nutcracker over services, because we do what we do because we want to get results and we love what we do. So you're getting a different service with someone like Nutcracker than you would someone that is literally stopping the clock, starting the clock and going, right, we're done now. And it's like, we haven't got results. Oh, well, we're done. We don't really think that way. We're constantly reviewing what we do and seeing if it works and, getting the results up and seeing if we're happy with them. It's not just about the client being accountable to clients. It's about us being accountable to the work we're doing. And is it good? And to do that, you have to review whether it's working and analyse whether it's working.
Okay. So if I was to go out and speak to a client, as an example, how do you think they would describe Nutcracker from their perspective?
Well, it's easy to tell you, actually, because we often ask our clients. And I did a video. We were finalists in the National Business Awards for New Business of the Year back in 2017, which is quite hard to do as a marketing agency. And as part of the presentation for that, I asked our clients to record what they thought of Nutcracker, and it was amazing. And the general consensus was that, well, aside from obviously being really good at what we do, we just care. And I think there's lots to be said for that, really caring about what you do because you care about whether it works or not. And I think, well, the recent testimonials, I mean, Gemma has secured about 4 or 5 this week from clients. So at the heart of it was always about conscientious, going the extra mile, getting commercial results, understanding their businesses, being part of a team. And I think that's what makes us different, and that's what we deliver on.
Okay. How do you avoid misunderstandings with a client? They have a perception they're getting X, you think you're delivering Y. Is there some clever, smart ways to try and ensure there's that connectivity?
We haven't really come up against that because the process is so thorough to start with. So there isn't any room to not understand we've not really come up against that. Sorry, I can't really.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Well, that's good to know. That means you're doing something obviously right and you're making sure that you're aligned before you move forward in an engagement. So that's great to know. So you've got plans, I guess, to scale your own business quite significantly. Is there an exciting way to demonstrate what your vision is for the next 4 or 5 years, perhaps?
I do want to scale it, but I want to scale it in a capped way, because Nutcracker is a boutique agency and I want it to stay a boutique agency. I want to stay doing really, really good work. So Nutcracker's business plan was never about having 100 people under the Nutcracker umbrella. It was always around getting results and quality of work with people that loved their jobs. So in terms of the extension of Nutcracker, it's more into new areas. So we're really making a difference and doing paid search linked to SEO quite differently to other agencies. We're doing PR very differently. So the growth will come from kind of new parts of the business expanding rather than kind of Nutcracker's heartland of what's made Nutcracker so successful expanding. Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time at Nutcracker. We're doing some really exciting work with some really interesting people, and it's a really good place to be part of, actually.
Brilliant. So do you have anybody particular that you would say inspires yourself? Do you have your own mentor, for example, who helps to stretch and challenge you?
I've had different mentors over the years, but I think I find different things inspiring. So I might read something that I find inspiring, but sometimes it's not always from big and bold. Like, for example, someone seeing something quite beautiful in nature, which just reminds you about what the world's all about and how we really are placing it. I find that quite grounding. So you're kind of living in the moment and not just about more. So I find different things inspiring. I obviously find any form of overcoming difficulties, like we all do, quite aspirational. And when someone's come from quite a difficult background to go on and achieve something quite phenomenal, I think that's hard not to be inspired by that. But what resonates with me is people that are quite authentic and real. And you can have somebody who, may suffer from depression, who really struggles to go out or might be agoraphobic. And then if they've managed to overcome that, I find that quite inspiring. So, I'm very fortunate. I'm a very confident person. I don't suffer from mental health issues myself, but I think you can find inspiration in lots of areas, not just kind of in the business world.
Would you say there's certain particular challenges for marketing at the moment, particularly obviously with the environment we have with COVID-19? Is that making things more difficult to get the message across, or perhaps better?
Well, I think it's a bigger opportunity. It's a better opportunity. We've definitely seen businesses understanding that unless they get their marketing right, they're in for a really, really, really tough time. And we've definitely seen increase in inquiries, people that need really switched on marketing. I think it's easier than it has been if you know what you're doing, because the results are so transparent. So it's very easy to prove if what you're doing is working. Equally, it's easy to see if it's not. So I think it's a good time to be in marketing. I think that the opportunity with marketing is to really understand how customers now make decisions and how low attention spans now are, and really understand the different mix of demographics that you're trying to reach. Humans now have an attention span on average about 8 seconds less than a goldfish. So to put out reams and reams of boring copy about something boring, it's going to bomb, So I think I think the emphasis on marketing is split into two. You've got to really be creative and understand how to bring the propositions to life in an engaging way. You've got to be able to execute really, really well. There's no point in having amazing messaging that no one's seeing. So I think that you've just got to be smarter, and you've got to be really clear on who you're trying to target, because there's so much competition, there's so much noise on social media, so much noise everywhere. So I think you've got to make sure that you've got a really clearly defined proposition and you're really bringing it to life in a really effective way.
It's really interesting you saying about length of copy. I don't know if it's me. Perhaps I've got a short attention span, I don't know. But I'm seeing emails coming through and landing pages that seem to go on and on forever. And within half a minute on board, I'm thinking, I'm not interested in this. I'm not getting to the point. I quite often scroll down the page just to get to the punchline. Is that something you think is going to change soon or not?
Well, I think like any industry, you've got people that are good, bad and indifferent in it. And a lot of people don't know how to do good marketing. I think people that are switched on and good know that's not how you do it, So I think it's like any industry, you get people that are good at it and people that are bad at it. But I completely agree with you. Our mantra is, if you can use 2 words instead of 20, use 2, like get to the point. But also it's about resonating. You would be, if it was long copy that spoke to you about something you were interested in, kept it focused on you might be interested. But more often than not, it's about them. Like, I was a bit uncomfortable with the questions on this podcast. I feel like it's all about Nutcracker, and to an extent, how interested is everyone about Nutcracker? We've got a lot to say, a lot to tell, but hearing the pitch of Nutcracker is boring. Of course I'm going to say it's amazing. I'd be weird if I didn't. So I think really what's more interesting is if I start talking about the common obstacles that people come up against, the reasons why their commercial growth falters. That's much more interesting, because then someone listening might kind of say, wow, yeah, that's me. That's exactly what I'm going through. So I think a lot of copy doesn't get to the point in terms of why someone should care. And then they so want to make sure they've included War and Peace that it becomes longer and longer. And often that could be because you've got too many cooks boiling the broth. Everyone's having an opinion. Oh, you've missed this out. Oh, blah, blah, blah. So by the time you go to publish it, either it's bland and sterile because it's been stripped back of any personality, or it's the size of, War and Peace because they've included everything and the kitchen sink to make sure that they've covered their backsides with what needs to be covered.
Yeah. And I've seen there's a lot more social media platforms entering the market now. What do you think will be the future social media, let's say in 10 years' time? Have you got any ideas on that?
I think it's going to depend on different demographics, because you've still got generations who didn't grow up communicating on social media. And while you've got that, you will always have certain types of communication tools. I think that there'll be a bigger divide between business social media sites and consumer social media sites, because I think increasingly consumer social media will be dominated with video and with instant messaging disappearing, buying into this kind of visualness that people can't cope with anything more than 2 seconds. But I think you'll have another end of the spectrum where people want something more meaningful, where they want to build connections and they want it to be less than instant gratification. So I think there'll be a divide between the instantness of things like, I can't say snapfish. Mine's gone completely blank. Because I still keep thinking about Clubhouse, this new thing that I've been...
yes, that would be my next question, actually. I'm curious to see what you think of that.
Yeah, so I think there's all the instant stuff, kind of TikTok, and then I think they'll become more meaningful sites where people actually do use it for either procurement or... I think you've got to cut through the noise somewhere, or it's gonna struggle as a communications platform.
Yeah. So Clubhouse, what's your thoughts? Have you spent much time on that platform?
So I've been asked to speak on it, so I will have to go onto it. But I've heard that it's highly addictive and that people waste hours of their life on it. And as I'm extremely busy, I haven't been onto it myself because I don't have time to spare. I think if it's a platform where people enjoy and they get to talk to people and they get to network and engage and hear some interesting insight, that's great. I think COVID has meant people haven't had live events to go to. They haven't had that kind of ease of networking that people are used to having on their doorsteps, whether it's through kind of small networks through to larger events. And I think Clubhouse probably fills that gap quite nicely. I'll tell you when I've actually used it myself, but until I have to, I'm afraid I shan't be. Having said that, it's something that we are looking into to incorporate as part of our digital PR plans for our clients, not digital, for our wider PR plans, because it probably does need to be on people's radar.
Brilliant. Well, I'm very conscious of the time and your future meetings. So if people wanted to contact yourself and Nutcracker and engage with you, what's the best way to go about that?
So look us up, www.nutcrackeragency.com, or email me directly, jenny.knighting@nutcrackeragency.com, or I'm on LinkedIn, and Nutcracker is on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So find us one of those ways.
You should be able to find you anywhere then.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Your name isn't very popular, so if you just put Jenny Knighting, you'll find me.
That's brilliant. I think it's been really interesting. I'm finding social media far more interesting to myself and what I'm doing with obviously marketing the podcast. So I'm really curious, as I said, to understand what you see is happening and how perhaps I can best engage, my mind into it.
Think about building a community. You're not just posting, you're trying to build a community of people that care about your content. So part of that isn't just waiting for people to come to you, it's reaching out to other people. So who you're following, who are you responding to? A lot of people want instant responses, likes and retweets without giving it themselves. So it's about a reciprocal process of building relationships. But the heart of social media should be posts which you find interesting, which would be interesting if it's your subject matter. And then making sure you're consistent with how often you serve that messaging, because people want to know what they're getting. They want to build a connection. They want to understand. So if you suddenly post twice a day for 7 days and then you're silent for two weeks, it's not going to resonate with people, because they don't know people like to know what they kind of can expect. Likewise, if you're just self-promotion, people aren't going to engage because you're not giving them anything. You're not making them feel valued or that you really have insight that's going to resonate with them. So I think it's about really understanding who you want to reach, building a persona around that in terms of what are they interested in, like what is their insights. And the best way to do that is to see what they're talking about and then link in on conversations. So if you were promoting the podcast around sales and marketing, you were targeting commercial growth people, for example, you would then join conversations around that, tag it in and say you might be interested in this recent podcast. Or, you know, so it's about joining the conversation as well as starting a conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk. I'm seeing lots of things about Facebook groups at the moment. What's your thought about Facebook groups? Are they really critical for most people now in this kind of line of business?
Well, I think it depends what you're selling. I mean, Facebook has penalised company pages, making it virtually impossible to grow a decent following with company pages. So groups go back into building communities, which is at the heart of good social media strategies. I really think it depends what you're selling. You know, for some of our clients, Facebook wouldn't be relevant. You know, for others, it's critical, and we do a lot of their outreach. So with social media, it's not a one size fits all. You know, it's what are you trying to sell and where is your customer base, and then it's making sure you're on the right platforms then. So for a lot of companies that were, you know, I might say to them, don't even think about a Facebook group. If you're going to do a group, do it on LinkedIn. You know, it's really about understanding where your audience is. So as to whether it's, you should pick your time. You know, a lot of social media might not be critical, but without it, you know, you're going to look faceless, you're going to look like you haven't got a brand, you're not going to look current, you're not going to look like you're a safe pair of hands, because people now critique businesses before they even speak to them. So check out the social media platforms, they check out how current their blogs are, they'll just get a feel for what kind of business it is. And you're soon going to look, you know, really that you're not a dynamic business if you don't have a proper strategy, you haven't got things up to date.
Do you think there's a good space for mastermind groups? That's another area I see appears to be quite active at the moment.
What do you mean by mastermind groups?
Mastermind groups, so people will pay to become members of a group that are of common interest. Let's say, for me, a procurement group that lots of procurement people want to come into, become a member of. You share obviously your content and information and so on and so forth. You know, I think there's a 5-minute mastermind, a book that's quite popular, particularly on social media at the moment. Just curious to know a little bit about that and how that's developing. It's not something you advocate?
Well, I think that goes back down to quality, doesn't it? With all the noise, people want something meaningful. And one of my friends has built a phenomenally successful business, take a modern take on events and content, which is paid networking. But to his events, he gets like the creme de la creme within his industry is turning up and sitting around round tables, you know, or giving their insights like that. You'd pay to be part of. So we've paid for things like what you're talking about. It all depends on the caliber and what you're going to get. Like if you know that by paying that money, you're going to get that gold nugget advice, that gold nugget insight that you wouldn't have had beforehand, you'll pay the money. If you think you're going to be sold out the whole time, you're not. So I think increasingly as people get more and attention spans get to like 1 second, no doubt, you know, what we demand for our time will become more and more have higher standpoints, and people won't want to just go onto a feed and just be looked down and think, God, I'm so bored of this. Like they'll want to spend their time with something, they're getting something back. So I think it's inevitable that quality will have to win over quantity. But what will ruin that will be that people will all jump on the bandwagon and they'll start serving terrible marketing, which is just selling, and then it will devalue the whole thing again, and the next thing will have to happen. So it's all about people putting out the right message to start with, so these things don't become really boring when they're supposed to be quite credible.
Brilliant. That's great. Well, I know you've got to go, so thanks again very much. It's an excellent podcast. Really appreciate your time, Jenny.
It's lovely to talk to you. Thanks
you very much.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please subscribe and leave a positive review if you can spare a minute or two. If you would like to contact me, my email address is david@thereallifebuyer.co.uk, or find me at Real Life Buyer on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, where you're welcome to direct message me. I look forward to you joining me on future episodes. Take care, and remember, save money and buy smart.